If you do maf, it's called in the Gemara, we know it as mafis mursa. If you open up the Shechin on Shabbos, it says that Aman kidelaharchif pia mako, to make the mako, to make the opening bigger. Kiderech sharefinoisin, like doctors do. Shehe miskavnim birfuo laharchif pia mako. When they make a hole in the mako, they want to make an opening where pus can come out, and ear could go in and heal the mako. Says the Rambam, Hareizu mechayiv mishumake bepatish. You fixed a keli. You made the hole of a maka a hole, a pesach. We know in the Gemara in Shabbos that a pesach that's not hoitzi ulahachnis, both ways, if it's not to take out and bring in, it's not a pesach. But since he had kavanah to do it like the Reifim did, so he's making maki bepatish. The Rambam says, Shezui meleches hareifi, that's what doctors do to heal these wounds. And the Rambam says, V'im hefiso lehoitzi mimena alecha, if he did it to take out the pus, he didn't do it in order that air should come back in and heal the makkah. He just did it. The pus was hurting him. It's muter lechatchila. Because he didn't do it to make a pesach, that it should heal. He just did it to squeeze out the pus. Even though a pesach was created, but we go after his kavanah. Since his kavanah was that the pus should go out, not lahachnis ulahoitzi. Therefore, it is muter lechatchila. He's hurting. He's allowed to do it. So the Magid Mishnah asks a question on this Rambam. There's a machlekes of the Rambam and the Ravid in the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos. Perik Aleph Halacha Zayin. The Rambam says, it's machlekes Rab Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. The machlekes is whether a melacha she'eino tzricha legufa are you chayav. If you do a melacha on Shabbos and you don't really need the melacha, Rab Shimon says you're poter mideirais because you don't need the melacha. You just need it out of here. There's a beautiful example for melacha she'eino tzricha legufa. The Gemara in Shabbos says if you have a mace in a house and you have to take him out, it shouldn't smell. You don't need the mace to be outside. You need here shouldn't smell. So you're not tzricha legufa. So Rab Shimon says you're poter. There's a beautiful Merkeves HaMishnah on the Rambam, the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos, and he gives a nice moshel on melacha she'eino tzricha legufa. If two people are talking, they want to tell each other a secret. And there's a third guy standing there, and you don't want him to hear the secret. So you tell him, you know what, go outside. Someone needs you. Do you need him outside? No. You just don't need him here. That's melacha she'eino tzricha legufa, he says. So Rab Shimon says it's poter, and the Ravid rules like Rab Shimon. But the Rambam says melacha she'eino tzricha legufa. You're chayev, even though you don't need it. You're chayev. And the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Zayin says that who says that maifis mursa is muter? Only Rab Shimon. If you hold melacha she'eino tzricha legufa, you're poter. So if you're meifis mursa, even though you're making a pesach, but since you don't need the pesach, your kavanah wasn't the pesach, you just need the pus out of here. That's the siba that we say that Meifis Mursa is muter, because it's only a Issa D'Rabbanon, because Malacha Shein Tzricha L'Gufa is a Issa D'Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon did not make their Gezeiros b'mokim choili, where you're sick. But the Rambam paskets in Perek Aleph Halacha Zayin, like Rabbi Huda, that even if you don't need the Malacha, it's a Malacha Asura Midoiraisa. How does he go ahead and paskins over here that it's muter? It's Ha'isa De'iraisa according to the Rambam, because you, even though a Malacha Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, you're chayiv. So if it's chayiv De'iraisa, they wouldn't be matir b'mokim tzar. So the Maggid Mishnah asked this question, and we have to understand. We have to answer the Rambam. So there's a beautiful Reb Chaim, and Reb Chaim learns there's a machlekes brought down in Teisvis Shabbos Daf Kuf Gimel. There's an oruch, Shitas ha'oruch Teisvis brings. There's something called psik reishe deloi nichale. You do something, psik reishe means automatically for sure the malacha is going to be done. But if that's not your intention, you don't need it. Deloi nichale says the aruch, then it's muter. Even though normally we say psik reishe is asur. But if it's psik reishe deloi nichale, says the aruch, then it's okay. It's not awesome midiraisa. So even though the Gemara says it's only muter, Meifis Mursa is only muter according to Rab Shimon, but he brings that Shmuel also holds the halacha of Meifis Mursa, and Shmuel says that Malacha Shein Tzricha L'Gufa Chayavin Aleha. So we see that Rambam paskins like Shmuel. And why in this case it's muter is because he holds like the aruch, that it's, even though he did it, he made a pesach, it's a psikration, but lo nichale, he doesn't want it. It's not his intention. I saw last night along a beautiful Yabia Imer, Chilik Dalet Simen Lamed Gimel, where he discusses when you make a tea on Shabbos, and you have a wet glass, you washed it, you just rinsed it. If you put the hot water in, you're going to cook the droplets of cold water that are in the cup. And he tries, it's a beautiful tshuva, and he gives a heter because we pass like the aruch, it's psikreishet le'nichale. He goes back and forth because you don't want to cook those. You have no interest in cooking those droplets. Never, he says it's better to shake the cup out as much as you can. But this is the aruch. So Reb Chaim says that this is how you could answer the Rambam. But there's many achreinim that prove from different places in the Rambam that the Rambam doesn't hold from that aruch. He holds, since he holds melacha she'eina tzricha legufa chayovin aleha, so he will hold psikreisha de leinichale is also chayev, because it's one related to the other. There's a beautiful tzemach tzedek in the Chidushim and the Shas, Daf Mem Tes Omed Daled, that he says there, Lord Shvatza Weiss, that according to the Rambam who holds Melocha She'eina Tzricha Legufa, Chayovin Yechayev, automatically psikresha delay nichale is chayev. So we cannot answer the Rambam with this oruch that Reb Chaim wants to answer the Rambam with. So the Rambam, we have to understand this Rambam. So there's a long Magid Mishnah on this Rambam, answer this Rambam. But let's take a look in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and from there we'll understand Pshat in the Rambam. Alter Rebbe says in Shimon Shivchov Ches, Sif Lamed Beis, that if you're mafis mursa b'Shabbos, b'shvil sheikon is ba'avil l'refuah, you're chayiv to makah b'patish, because you're making a pesach. Okay. Then the Alter Rebbe says, but if he was mafis mursa, to take out the pus that was hurting him, even though b'derech memele, there's a pesach. You made a pesach haroi lahachnis lahoitzi, so you should be chayim mishumake b'patish. Says the Alter Rebbe, since you don't need it, it's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Since it's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, it's potter. It's only aser midrabanon, or b'mokim tzar the did nasa. Then the Alter Rebbe continues, and he's going to explain the Rambam. Even though according to those opinions, which is the Rambam, that's paskins like Rabbi Yochayev, the Alter Rebbe brings the shita of the Rambam many times in Hilchos Shabbos and says if you can, you should be machmir like shita of Rambam because it's a deiraisa. Even though according to those the same lachas and zuchul chayev. Says the Alter Rebbe here, since his chiyuv is mitzad, he's fixing the mak. So since he doesn't need it, and his einem is kaven, even though there became a tikkun, it's not called a tikkun. Since that wasn't his kavanah, so it's as if he did nothing. We have to understand pshat. What does the Alter Rebbe mean? And the Alter Rebbe says, so if so, why would it be osir midrabanan? And the Alter Rebbe says, you could be goyzer. Maybe he will have kavanah for a Pesach. The Rabbanan would be goyzer, but mishum tzayri legozu. But we have to understand the Alter Rebbe. What does the Alter Rebbe mean? That if he's not miskaven, it's not a malocha. We have the same idea later in the Rambam, by when you're catching the choshim that could bite you. We'll see if we have time for that later. But we have to understand pshat in the Alter Rebbe. So there are certain malachas in Shabbos. This is also explained in the Imrei Tzvi from Harav Gruzman and the Shurim on Shabbos. Siman Dalet, I think. There are certain malachas that if you have kavanah, only that makes it a malach. Normally by Shabbos, if you did chodesh or boin, it's a malacha. But certain malachas of Shabbos have to have kavanah to make it. Among them is the malach of makeh b'patish. Since makeh b'patish means finishing the keli, fixing it, you have to have kavanah to fix it. It's the same last bang of the hammer to fix it. You have to have kavanah. That makes it makeh b'patish. Meila says the Alter Rebbe, and this is how the Alter Rebbe learns pshat in the Rambam. Even though malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, you're chayiv. So this meifus mursa, he made a Pesach. Who cares? He didn't need it, but he made it. Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa chayovin aleh. But since it's the malacha of makeh b'patish, and he didn't have kavanah, makeh b'patish could only be with kavanah. Otherwise, it's not the malach of makeh b'patish. You're banging a hammer. That's what it's explained. The Mele, that's why the Alter Rebbe says it would be mutter. It's not a malacha b'chlal. You could be geyser, maybe you will have kavana, but that's how we have to learn pshat in the Alter Rebbe. How he learns to answer the stira of Mephis Mursa. We find here in the Rambam and Machlekes, if Mephis Mursa is chayiv mishum boine or mishum makeh b'patish. The Ravid says it's mishum boine. The Alter Rebbe says it's makeh b'patish. Because if it wouldn't be makeh b'patish according to the Rambam, if it would be boine, boine is not considered as kavona, it doesn't make it a malacha. He did the malacha of boine. That's why the Rambam has to learn that it's makeh b'patish. And that's why Mephis Mursa is mutter. This is the way the Alter Rebbe learns this, and with the way the Alter Rebbe learns, we can understand why the Rambam says dafke makeh b'patish. So the Rebbe is to help him that we should do them through learning the Rambam liyuna. This should be the final makeh b'patish. Whatever we do should be the final makeh b'patish to bring the geula. And our kavona, the way the Rebbe taught us, is that every mitzvah we do, we should do with the kavona to bring the geula. We should know that our avodah is important, very important. L'mayla, what we do is very important, and what we do is makeh b'patish. And may this learning Rambam and all other things be the makeh b'patish, the geula amitis v'hashlema. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful